Today, all across the diocese, seminarians have scattered to different churches to tell a little bit about their vocation story and advocate for priestly vocations. Now, because I'm assigned here for my diaconate assignment, you got me. So I'll try not to disappoint. Now, reflecting on my vocation, I can pretty confidently say I was not a likely candidate for priesthood. I would goof around a lot in grade school. In high school, I didn't really hang out with the most pious crowd. But somehow, by the grace of God, I decided to enter seminary. I remember my senior year, I was going to homecoming at Beaumont in Cleveland Heights. Beforehand, you do the pictures at someone's house, and I saw my third grade teacher there whose daughter was in the group. So, as parents always do, she asked me, what I was doing after high school. And I said, yeah, so I'm going to go to Borromeo Seminary for college. And she said, no, seriously, what are you doing? And it took a bit to finally convince her, but I think she ended up believing. She definitely does now. And so I definitely, in the minds of a lot of people, was not quite the priestly type. But although I was an unlikely character to enter seminary, God chose me. God grabbed my heart and called me to go deeper in relationship with him. And in doing so, God put in me a desire to live a life of service, a life given to people of God who yearn for God. And I found that for me, that meant serving the church as one of God's priests. And throughout my discernment of priesthood and at least at times saying yes to follow God, I think God especially rejoiced in making an unworthy and an unlikely character a faithful disciple. Now, there's a very similar dynamic in the gospel we hear today. Not just because Zacchaeus and I are short, but that we were pretty unlikely characters. Out of the whole crowd, Jesus picked the least likely guy to stay with. Now, Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector, so that means everyone hated him. And he was also rich, which meant Jesus probably wasn't a big fan or a big supporter of his money. However, like the lost sheep, Jesus delighted in making this unlikely character a devout disciple. And looking at Zacchaeus, I think this applies to us deeply today. Because most of us either consciously or subconsciously see ourselves as unlikely characters. We often tell ourselves, I could never be a saint. That's just ridiculous. Saints they either lived 500 years ago, or that's for the priests and the holy people. Yeah, holiness is for somebody else. That's not for me. I just show up and occasionally pray. So we tell ourselves often that we're unlikely characters. We're not meant for this. So with this story of Zacchaeus, the Lord is telling us that that's not true. That even though we might think ourselves to be unlikely, God wants so badly to convert us to be zealous disciples. Like Zacchaeus, we need to draw near to the Lord and be ready for his call, even if we don't expect it. And so practically, this is us going to God in prayer, in times of need, and asking God where God is calling us. So this might look like going to prayer before making a big decision. Maybe it's a change of career paths, and God might want us to make a cut in our salary to have a more meaningful job. Maybe it's deciding to go to college or go back to school. And God has a plan for us past all of the 10 of our top 10 choices. And also, this looks like more simple daily examples. You know, we could turn to God and ask what he wants to do with us with a free Saturday morning. We could have a quick prayer before talking to a family member or a friend who's been deeply struggling with sadness, addiction, and also this aspect of leaning towards God. For our young people, this means considering a different path. You know, God, if we lean close, God might be telling our young people to be a priest, to be a woman religious, to be a missionary. But we need to draw near to the Lord. And in drawing near, I promise that God will not disappoint. Looking back at my own life, I know that I would not have a fraction of the joy and fulfillment that I've received if I haven't listened to God's call. And I know that moving forward, I will have no increase of joy and fulfillment if I don't continue to say yes to the Lord, if I settle with what God has already given me. May we all have this courage to draw near and allow God to transform us from unlikely characters to zealous disciples.